Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really excited for my next guest. His name's Caleb Christopher. He's the founder of Creative TC and Creative Underwriter, where his team and himself, they manage over 50 transactions per month, creative-only transactions, where they also help structure deals and provide remediation of the due on sale clause when necessary. His background in law enforcement, cybersecurity, and risk management helps his clients make more strategic, risk-informed decisions. Caleb, thanks for joining me, man.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
So you've done a lot of different things in your professional career. We were just talking about you've done real estate investing, you've owned properties, you've done a lot of the lead generation type skills and cold calling and you've been around the block in that space, but you started way back in law enforcement. And then you got into IT and risk management and project management, but all great stuff foundationally for what you're doing now. Can you tell me about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Before law enforcement, I was doing construction. And so I've seen the insides of houses taken apart. And so I had that foundational knowledge, but, laid off in the housing crisis was about the time. And I was able to lock in a government job, which is pretty stable. And that's where I got into law enforcement, but that's as a prison guard. And so I've been kicked and I've seen rooms painted literally with poop and I've been bitten, literally almost had my finger bitten off. So I ended up being a supervisor in the shoe on the night shift. So I've seen some stuff.
Yeah, that working in the prison really prepares you to work with real estate agents, right?
Oh yeah, they're the worst. So it's perfect. No. Yeah, nothing is as bad. And I grew up in church and all these things, and one day at work in the prison, I would hear more cussing in one day than I've heard my entire life combined prior to that. It was insane. But you learn a lot. You learn a lot about managing expectations, communicating effectively, and I always wanted to be an agent of change, and in government, there's just not room for that. And you can talk to any government employee. It's all about seniority and time in your chair, not about how effective you are. And I'm like, I can't be here. I got to go. I got to escape prison.
Yeah. Literal prison. Sometimes we call them prisons because we feel like we're contained, but you were in a literal prison. And then you broke out into the IT world and cybersecurity. Was that I don't know, were you planning on that or did you just kind of follow into it?
When you're looking for something, what is it? Luck is when opportunity meets preparedness or something along those lines. And I was looking, I was ready. I knew I'm smart, but I didn't know what to jump into and I needed guidance. And then two of my coworkers were discussing this IT boot camp one night. And I was like, what are they talking about? And the next night they came in talking about it again. I said, hey, I called them yesterday. Sounds like a legit program. I'm scheduled for their entrance exam. You guys should check it out. And they kept talking about it week after week. And meanwhile, I took the exam, I got financing, and I got in because I saw the opportunity to change careers in 6 months or less. And I'm like, goodbye. I'm taking action. Both feet, let's go. And so the career change was incredible. It just gave me the opportunity to be really who I wanted to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So then you transferred over. At what point did you start thinking about real estate investing?
My parents had a rental house ever since I was little. And that was their like backup retirement savings account. That's how they treated it. Literally just one house, they get it paid off and they keep it rented and they maintain it. And every once in a while they spend half a summer working on it to fix it up or upgrade it. But they treat it like a retirement account. So I always knew real estate was like, it's a good place to put some money at some point. But I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. So I bought my first house, but I got into real estate when it was right after I quit the prison. Yeah, a little bit after I quit the prison, but when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Oh my goodness. How many years of my life had I wasted not doing anything with real estate?
Oh, I know. It's crazy. That book is transformational for so many people who have gotten into real estate, who are having high levels of success. And it's a tweak, right? It's a paradigm shift in thinking about what we learned growing up. And my dad was law enforcement. He was a Denver police officer for 33 years. My mom was a bank teller. And there was never any discussion about entrepreneurship or investing in real estate. It was always a save, save, save mentality, which is,
It's not
was
bad.
indoctrinated into me, and it served me well.
Yeah.
But I never was exposed to entrepreneurship. Were you? Or is that something you just
No.
kind of it
I
developed over time?
no, I saw a meme that was like me because my parents taught me hard work instead of leveraging others, and it's like this dude working really hard and mad about it. But I'm like, I'm a hard worker. I've learned that much. But now I need to take that to taking my ideas and taking them to action. And I'm learning how to be a business builder, business owner, and I'm still pretty young at it.
Yeah. But you got the skills to be able to execute, right? Which is what a lot of business owners don't have, especially startup business owners. They have like a great idea, but
Yeah.
then they don't have the wherewithal to execute on their idea and turn it into a reality, which is you're the opposite. Like you basically got into this business of being a transaction coordinator because at some point you realized the system was broken.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's my
things were
origin story right
happening
there.
that were affecting your transactions,
Yeah.
and you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
And I've paused on investing in real estate while I fix this problem. And never in my life before starting Creative TC had I said no to everything but one thing. And so I didn't do any second jobs. I've always had two jobs or been a really hard worker. Um, Turned everything off and focused solely on this one thing. And I'm almost done. And we're 2.5 years old. And I think I'm almost done to the point where I can step out without abdicating. And I've got a team running things. And so I'm in the middle of transitioning into launching the new company, DOSGuard.
Got it.
Yep.
So what was it that happened, or maybe it was just a series of occurrences that made you think, okay, I have to start my own company to solve this?
I looked for it elsewhere and I didn't find it. Not easily available, not affordable, nothing like that. And the ones that were available at the time, I have a problem. I'm a pretty bad customer. I'm not your favorite customer. If I sign up to work with you, you got to be top notch, or I'm going to be like, I know enough to be dangerous, and that's not a good thing for me as a
Yeah.
customer. And so I tend to slip through the cracks and things like that. And I've got really high standards, and other people, I'm constantly, I feel like a pessimist, but I'm constantly disappointed. But I'm like, there's really important stuff that people are missing. And so when I did
Yeah.
my first couple of deals, that's exactly how it went. And I'm looking at the available options for transaction coordination, et cetera. And I'm like, nobody's really teaching. They're just like, you're just an administrative assistant. That's not appropriate for learning how to do creative finance deals. I mean, go take action is great, but also, like, if you're going to do something dumb or risky, go put a helmet on or something like that, right? I was the guy in high school who was like, hey, let's do dumb stuff and crazy stuff, but how about we put helmets on first?
Right.
I'm sure I saved my friends' lives multiple times. And so
So
I just bring that into real estate.
yeah. So when I think about, what a title company does, right? Because whenever somebody brings up transaction coordination, the first person's response is always, well, I've got a title company. Don't they do that? Right. But when I look at TC, it's more about, it's like they're an advocate of yours. Like they're keeping an eye out for what you're doing to make sure that you didn't miss something. Right. They're looking at the contracts. They're looking at, yeah, we got to push this transaction forward. There's dates and deadlines and things we have to pay attention to. But was this deal structured in the right way? Is there any blind spots that we should be aware of? We want to help you get to closing. It isn't just pushing paperwork to get to closing. It's avoiding all of the potential risks.
Yeah. And I feel like there's two things at play here. A title company is not your mentor. They don't have time to mentor you, and that you may force them into a position where they have to train you on some basics of how to do these deals, but they're not really your mentor or your JV partner. And the other piece is they're focused on close of escrow. They may onboard your file and then go dark on you for 2 or 3 weeks. And then the last 4 days is when they really like, all right, let me pull up the title work. Let me build a settlement statement. Meanwhile, they really haven't done anything, nor are they willing to give you the time of day a lot of times. And so they're focused on close of escrow and they're done. They're hands off. I've gone back to title companies after the fact and said, hey, there's a typo on this. This is an issue. We need it fixed. And they're like, you signed the settlement statement, so we're out. Really? You have a correction and compliance agreement we can use. Can we just issue a corrected settlement statement, please? Nope, you guys signed it. Good grief, man. So they do not care. by and large, they don't care after close of escrow. So especially in creative finance where you have an ongoing relationship, past close of escrow, it really starts to matter that everything is right by the time you close so that you're set up for success ongoing.
So let's just say that, closing escrow is the foundation of it. What does a creative TC do on top of that?
Well, I want to say TC for me stands for transaction consultant. And so we do want to make sure your deal is set up right in the first place. And so we onboard, we don't even take a file on or take a deposit from anybody until we've had a chance to look at the paperwork. Tell me if I talk too fast because I get excited. We look at the paperwork and we want to see what's your original contract. Now, then you tell me what your transaction is and what your objectives are. Let's start with the outcomes and let's look at your paperwork and make sure it matches. And then let's look for weaknesses, red flags, and other things that we've seen after doing hundreds and hundreds of deals. Oh, you said you wanted this, but your contract actually says that you're closing at sub two, but what you wanted actually was to close as a contract for deed. Or better yet, can I suggest you just update the contract so that you have the option to close as a contract for deed or as a trust, and that your purchase price aligns with not the payoff quote, because that includes other fees, but the mortgage balance at time of close of escrow. It's all the little things start adding up to a couple $100s, couple $1,000, and making sure the deal is more likely to actually close.
Right. And then this is why this is so much more valuable than just a title company pushing the deal to closing, because in a
Yeah.
creative deal, there's so many more levers in the transaction. And if you're not pulling the right lever at the right time, you could jeopardize that deal to not close at all. But then maybe a worst case scenario is it closes improperly, right? And
Yep.
now you put yourself and the seller in a bad situation post closing.
Yep. And I would say that if you're not an old seasoned pro at creative finance, you really should be JVing on every deal until you've seen and touched all the things. But that's why I act as a consultant, because it's an alternative to a JV partner. We're not just going to help you put what you put on paper to the finish line. We're going to take and look at what you've got and sometimes say, I know what you're after, but you didn't do it right. Can we make a correction here?
Mm-hmm. Well, and maybe that's what this new company is, but shouldn't they just call you before they write the offer to make sure that it's done the right way from the very beginning?
Yes, huge but, time kills all deals. So I
Yeah.
would much rather a wholesaler or a buyer or whoever ink the deal and get it locked up so that the person doesn't shop it to other people. Get the deal locked up first thing. Now, if you don't know how to get that locked up, I do have a contract write-up service. You fill out our form on our website. One of our people calls you, schedules a Zoom. Hey, let's go through this together. We'll help you put the contract together and get it out to your seller ASAP. So we have that. So if you want to do it right in the first place, or you want guidance, or if they have questions about what's the best way to structure my sub two offer, we're on board. We'll get on a call with agents and things like that. So we're here
Right.
for that. But also, if you have the opportunity, strike while the iron's hot, while people are agreeable, get it locked in, because we can always tweak it afterward. Almost always tweak it afterward.
Do you have any sort of, is it like a transactional basis where they're just paying you on a per transaction basis? Or have you thought about maybe doing like some sort of retainer where they can pay you on a monthly basis to just call you in from time to time? And you're like, yeah, this is my client. I'm working with them. I need to pick up this call and take it.
Yeah, we have that with a couple of volume clients, so to speak. We've got a couple of those, and it's an interesting relationship to set up. I like the idea. Execution doesn't end up being clean because,
Mm.
well, it's hard to pinpoint why it doesn't work, but I tend to provide the most value to the actual end buyer. Next down comes to the wholesaler or somebody else involved in the transaction. I love it when I work for a buyer. Not that I dislike anybody else, but when I work for the buyer, no holds barred, baby. I could rip you a new one if you got something wrong. My client is trying to buy this house correctly at closing. And so we always prioritize our client, but we also want to make sure that the deal is done ethically. So I do like taking people on a repeat basis, and we build relationships where, if you're doing deals repeatedly, I've got Chelsea, I've got TJ, I've got David, some primary people that it's like, hey, that's my person. I'm going to put them on the phone, but we're there for you for sure.
Yeah. So some people might be thinking, well, once I've done high volume amount of deals and they've seen it all and done it all, I don't need a transaction coordinator because we can just do that ourselves, do that work ourselves. But
Mhm.
that's not their highest and best use, right? Isn't that where it's like let's pay the experts to do what they do well, and we'll just keep doing what we do well.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a graduation point where my team is no longer needed and you actually need a coordinator. But I think most people think they need a coordinator. But I'm going to tell you, a coordinator, if you look up the definition, is somebody who literally coordinates the things between different parties to make sure it happens. That does not involve consulting. And so I think you need a JV partner or a consultant until you're seasoned in creative finance deals. Then you need a coordinator because you know what the heck you're doing. Then you
Mhm.
can hire your administrative assistant. And I agree, aces in their places is what they taught me at McDonald's. First job I ever had. Hey, aces in their places. Caleb, your fingers fly across the touch screen while you're talking to somebody and you're taking cash. You're only working that back window taking orders, buddy. Oh, but I want to do this. You're really good at that and you're better than anybody else. That's what you got to do. Sorry. And that's as your real estate business grows, you need the consultant until you're the seasoned pro and then you're in charge of a coordinator.
Right. But the same could be said for people who go to lawyers for different things. Like a lawyer is always staying up to speed on the new laws. They're always looking at precedent. There's new cases that come up all the time that changes the approach of what is practical today versus a month ago, even. Isn't that a good reason to have somebody like you on their team just forever, even if they are seasoned? Because
Yeah.
you're always in the weeds, right? You're always looking at the next transaction that went bad, evaluating that deal, taking that information back to your clients to help them be better the next time.
Yeah. And I do have people who are look, I'm a price leader. I'm going to be way up there price wise. And I have very experienced people who don't need me, but they're like, I'm going to use you every once in a while anyways, or for my one-off transactions in a different state or something else because you're down in the thick of it. Like people go on a walk into the woods. I live in the woods, baby. This is all I know. And so these experienced investors will come bring me a deal just every once in a while just to work with my team and be able to ask questions along the way because we don't just coordinate and make stuff happen. We're asking you questions and helping you make informed decisions the whole way.
Yeah. And this is one of those spaces where the laws are changing, right? And
Yes.
the rules too, like
Yep.
rules with the way that, like, say, title companies view a creative deal, right? Because they're being advised by their legal staff to do things one way or another, and their rule
Yep.
might be, oh, we don't do this, right? So you might have to get in there and have a conversation with their underwriter or somebody on their legal team to be like, no, 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 this is not what you think it is. Like, this is something
And
different,
we've
right?
done that.
So you
We've
do
done
that
that
from
plenty of
time to
times. So we
time. And
we've
then there's
built
also
a
the state laws and rules
yes.
that someone has to pay attention to.
Yep. And we have our list of favorite title companies. And I tell you, I am quick to drop people when they say something real dumb. I had somebody say, and it's not that I'm scared of attorneys, but somebody said, hey, your closing costs on all creative deals are going to about triple because we're going to start requiring an attorney on both sides. We're not comfortable closing these unless each party has their own attorney. I'm like, I like the way you're headed ethically, but forcing it and tripling closing costs is not going to work for me or my clients. I already know that. It's just not going to work out. So we've got an ongoing list of title companies that are top notch for what we want to do, and we've even come to the point where with some title companies where they're like, "Hey, here's first draft of the settlement statement really early. I'm not going to waste any time because you're going to tear it apart. So go ahead and take this first draft, do all your red letter markups on it, and then I'll build after that." And they basically give us free reign to get the thing started and fast forward their work because it saves them a couple of hours.
Right. Yeah, that's the key too, is just streamlining the whole process. And that's where I think like your background in project management is so important here, because every little detail has to be planned out so far in advance. Because if one thing is wrong, it has that snowball effect, and it can affect the entire transaction if you don't plan properly.
Yeah. And I've been to court with our paperwork and I've won. And I've won even without, you can win, but it can be really expensive to be right. And I say that to my clients who are like stuck on this one thing, like, but I can do this. Yes, you can. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. And even if you're right, it can be very expensive to prove it. So is it really worth what you're after? Because I can tell you that court's going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $12,000 minimum. And are you going to win any money out of this person? It's
Right.
not. So it's those informed decisions that I think are really critical, and that's where the both the experience and the expertise comes into play. With ask yourself, who do you really need on your team when you're doing these creative deals?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about creative deals for a moment here, and why a transaction consultant could be necessary. Like, what is it about a creative deal that makes it different?
Well, number one, it's non-traditional. I mean, we're talking about a subset of the transactions, the grand scheme of things in real estate. We've got attorneys and title companies who don't even understand how to do the deal the right way and the long-term implications because they haven't been touching these deals for a long time. The methods have been around for a long time, but the experts are few and far between.
Yeah. Well, let's explain to the audience what a creative deal is.
If you're not using traditional bank financing or your own cash, or even hard money lender cash, so if you're going to buy a house, typically it's going to be seller finance or you're taking over the payments on the existing loan. I had one where somebody called me and said, "Hey, we can't get any investors or anybody to buy this. These people can't sell their house. They've already got a second mortgage, so they've already moved. Can you do anything for them?" And when I ran the math, obviously, if they're coming to me after investors have turned it down, it's not going to cash flow. And I said, "You guys, I can take over your payments, but I hate to tell you this. If you paid me $200 a month to offset my losses for 2 years until I can raise rents, then I can take this off your hands and I'll take your payments over and things like that." And 2 days later, they were like, "You know what? That's the best offer we've received, and we need to do something. We can't afford." So, and they've been paying me $200 a month for it's almost been a year now.
Wow.
So I think creative finance transactions are, if you don't have a story, you don't have a creative deal. And say that all day long. I don't think it's right to be doing creative deals if you don't understand the story behind it, because people's motives, their creative finance should be used to solve problems, not just as a willy-nilly, "Oh, this is cool, let's do this."
So if a person has equity and they can afford to pay all the closing costs and they can afford to pay a real estate agent, are you saying there's not a good reason to do a creative deal?
Well, you need to find the good reason. The good reason could be, I don't want to pay agent commissions because that's a, 5, 10, 15, $20,000 more in my pocket. That's a good reason. And you're getting, in effect, they're getting paid for the risk of letting somebody else pay their mortgage instead. And same thing, a low interest mortgage is an asset that I am ready and willing to buy, baby. The one that I took over is 3.625%. And I was looking at it, I was like, golly, it's so sad that this is not a deal. But 5 years from now, Caleb's going to kick today Caleb in the head if he doesn't find a way to do this deal. And so I told the people, if you give me $200 a month, I'll do it.
Right.
5 years from now, that's going to be a great deal.
Because there's different pros and cons on both sides of the transaction. There's pros and cons for the buyer or the
Yep.
wholesaler, and then their end buyer, but then there's also pros and cons for the seller.
Yep.
So they have to weigh both of those.
And,
And
and
is that something that you do when you're looking at a transaction, or are you purely just looking at like what benefits my client?
my client first. So I will take, if I want to take information to a seller, agent, or somebody else in the transaction, I bring it to my client first. One of our core values is advocate for the client, and a belief that we have. We believe in standing up for our clients, but we also believe in standing up to our clients. And so if I feel, or my team feels, and we've filtered pretty heavily to find the right type of people, if we feel that something is unethical, shady, underhanded, we're going to take it to the client first. And if we can resolve it there and come to an understanding about what it is, and whether or not this is an ethical thing or whether disclosure is required or something along those lines, great. But if we don't feel that they're making the ethical move, we're going to challenge them and say, "No, you need to go fix this. We need to bring this up, or we're going to drop the transaction."
What's an
And
example of something like that that would be a red flag for you that would violate some sort of ethical boundaries?
well, I've been against loan modifications for a long time. And when I say that, I mean coaching a seller into getting a loan modification to reduce the arrears due at closing, and then taking, with the whole time planning to take it subject to that loan. It's deceptive. You're coaching somebody into providing either intentionally incomplete or false information to the bank in order to receive a financial benefit, but it's not for them, it's for you. And
Mm.
so you're deceiving the bank, and there are people in prison for it. And it's not just because people are going to prison for it that I'm out. I'm like, I'm touching dozens of these deals. That's not the ethical line, that I'm not willing to do it. And you really should either pay the full arrears and take it over subject to, which is legit, or not coach your seller into providing false information in order to get this deal to make it work.
Does a short sale situation still meet that criteria that you're thinking about? Like, is it?
Yes, I mean a short sale would be legit to me when you're making an offer and the bank accepts it and it's in the open. What's happening?
Yeah, it's all above board. That's the whole
Yeah.
point.
See, so I think here's a critical thing, like what is subject to? When you buy a house, and I think most people listening have bought and sold houses before, but every deal anybody has ever done is a sub to deal. And what I mean by that is that when you buy a house, you buy it subject to what? Rights of way and other things. There are things that you can't argue with. If a utility truck drives onto the front 15 feet of my property and digs a hole, I can't say squat about it because I bought the house subject to easements and rights of way and other things like that. That's just the nature of every transaction ever. And so the only thing we're changing is we're adding the existing mortgage to the list of subject to. And
Mhm.
so I buy the house subject to the terms and conditions in that mortgage. And therefore, if the mortgage does something, such as, and we can get into the due on sale clause, um, if something happens related to the mortgage, that's too bad. I took it subject to those terms and conditions. And so when you sell subject to a mortgage, it's not criminal because you haven't deceived anybody unless you bought it with the intention of selling sub to before that 12-month seasoning period where you have to legitimately plan on living in the property as your primary residence for a owner occupant loan. If life changes after the fact and you weren't planning to do this, then you can sell subject to and it's not illegal.
Right. It was all based on intention from
It
the very.
is. And it's very hard to approve intent and things like that. I get it, but I'm going to steer way clear of that line.
Yeah. So let's go into the due on sales clause then, the due on sale clause.
Mhm.
So that's like one of the biggest fears of people doing subject to, but it doesn't really happen that often. Like it's not called very often at all that I know of.
I agree. It by and large, the number of transactions that we've done versus the time we've seen it, like I don't think any of the transactions my team has run have hit due on sale. And we've run hundreds and hundreds. So, but other people's transactions, they've gotten it called, and I've become the due on sale guy. When a post comes up, oh crap, I just got this called, then my name gets tagged 14 times. And we have fixed it for people. So it is fixable. But what happens in the due on sale clause, you bought subject to the mortgage, right? So we've established that. The existing bank or lender has the right to call the loan, meaning say, hey, all $274,000 of that loan is now due immediately within 30 days because we did not approve this transfer. You
The
sold it, you
transfer of
transferred
title,
it.
right? That's the key.
Yep,
Title is transferred without the original loan holder, the mortgage holder,
approving.
being notified. And
Yep.
so they haven't had a chance to qualify the new buyer to see if they can continue to make payments.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
mean, I have better
basically?
credit than the people that I bought that house in Colorado where they're paying me. I've got
Right.
better credit than they do. And so I'm a better risk bank wise, but that was an owner occupant loan with a lower interest rate and they don't know who I am. So they have the right to call it due.
Right.
And that's
Have you
scary.
ever known about a situation where you found out that the bank found out about the transaction, right? And you found out that they knew, and they were like, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like we're as long as the payment's still made, we're not too worried about it."
Mm. Oh, there was one. So I was fixing a due on sale for one client and I'm going back and forth with the bank's attorney. And they're saying, "Hey, we're going to call we've called the due on sale clause, we've accelerated the loan and we're going to foreclose." And then the seller stopped cooperating. Long story short, seller got uncooperative because they thought they could extort money out of the buyer. Meanwhile, the buyer is doing renovations and if they had to, they could sell the property and just be done with it. So it's not a major problem. So we're really not playing chicken with somebody's credit. It's the seller who's holding out. And so they're not going to sign documents to help us resolve the due on sale. Meanwhile, the bank is like, we're going to foreclose. You guys better get this handled. Okay, let me put together a plan with you guys. And we did. And I got it in writing from the bank that they would approve the plan of action that we had in place. And then they're like, okay, so why haven't you guys done it? Well, we're waiting on the seller because they're not being cooperative. Okay, well, we'll give it 30 days and we'll check back in. And so, and it went into that. It's just a wait mode. They're still accepting payments from the buyer. The seller is still being a jerk. And the bank is like, come on, guys. And this is 8 months later. So they haven't foreclosed. They do want the payments. I think they just want to threaten in this case. to get it off their books and take off the risk. But as long as they're not foreclosing, this buyer's holding that property and cash flowing it.
Right.
So there is an instance where clearly they do want the payments more than they want the trouble of foreclosing, but they
Mhm.
can't say that.
Right. So I mean, that's a good, situation that kind of it shows why a good TC is important. What's another crazy situation that you've come across that illustrates why having a transaction consultant is so important?
Uh, Shoot, man. I have lots of, so we've had people leave 5-star reviews and my name's not on them anymore, which is great because I have a team of people who are working and I'm so proud of them that we've got these reviews coming in with TJ and Marcelo and Oshin and Sarah and Ilza, and like I feel bad not naming everybody, but I gotta respect time. But we've had people where sellers are trying to back out of contracts, and we usually, this one's me composing a demand letter, a cure notice, looking at the contract, finding out if you have a 3, 5-day, 10-day cure notice, and saying, hey, these are the terms of the contract, you know, screenshots of the different sections. You're in violation of section 4, section 1.2, and all these different pieces. Here's what you can do to cure the default, and here's your timeline to do it. And if you don't, we're ready to press forward with A, B, and C. So, but I have to work consultatively with my client. What are you
Mhm.
willing to do to make this thing happen? Usually, that demand letter is enough of a scare tactic to get the person to jump in line. And I recommend, hey, let me draft that. You take it to your attorney and put it on their letterhead. I'm not an attorney. I don't claim to be. I'm not a CPA. I'm none of those things. But as a consultant, I can tell you from experience what you should be doing, what I would be doing if I were you.
So that situation to me sounds like that's post closing. Like this is a buyer or seller's remorse situation.
No, that one was actually the seller had a better offer, surprise, or a different offer that's more cash or not creative anymore. But the did I say buyer or seller? The seller had that offer, and the buyer had already started spending money on getting prepared for closing and lots of things like that. So they're already several $1,000s in, and the seller was not willing to repay them the difference or anything like that. And so sorry, man, we're locked in. This is the path we're on. The buyer has the right to sue for specific performance. And guess what happens when that goes through? Any cash to you is reduced by the amount of the attorney's fees on the buyer's side. So if you want to go down that route, we can. It's just going to take longer to close and you'll get less cash. Your choice.
Right. So you've done hundreds and hundreds of transactions. What's the most overlooked risk in the creative financing that most people don't think about that makes you kind of go, yeah,
I think when wholesalers are putting things under contract, they're focused on get it locked up and find a buyer that they want to assign. And there's a whole slew of ethical discussions about wholesaling creative deals. And again, that's why I'm like, you need to know the story behind the deal to be able to do it the right way. But the wholesaler puts in very specific terms, very narrowly restricting what can be done with the transaction. And if I had my preferences, they would put on or before. It's like these little things on the close of escrow date, put on or before a certain date, so that you have the flexibility to close early if everybody's agreeable, and put the buyer has the option to close as this, or this. So as a wraparound mortgage, or as a sub two, or as a contract for deed if it's appropriate, or into a land trust in which, and so we've got copy paste um, language now that we can help people put in their contracts so that the end buyer has the flexibility to close in a way that's appropriate for their exit strategy. Because you've got party A is the seller, party B is a wholesaler. They enter into a contract, which then gets assigned to party C, and that's the person who's really going to be doing stuff with it long term. And so are they doing long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental? Are they going to wrap it to an end buyer? All these things have different implications about how you want the original paperwork to be structured. And so giving the flexibility of how to close is ideal from the front end.
right, right. Is there a red flag that you see sometimes where you could just tell someone just run, like in a transaction where you think like this is just a deal that we're not going to be able to figure out, let's just pass.
Yes, if so I try to stay away from divorce and probate deals that are not like very clear cut where everybody's not involved. If a married person doesn't have the signature of their spouse, or if they've lived in a property for a long time with somebody and that person did not also sign the contract, I'm like, hey, not a deal until you get that second signature. I'm not going to waste your deposit because I'm not refunding your deposit once you get started with me. So let's take a free consult on the front end. I'm going to help you go back and get the signature that you need for this to actually be a deal, because it's not yet. That's a big one. And it'll come to me. I had another one. I forgot.
Yeah, and not everything is related to creative, right? Because it could be just the
Yeah.
deal's bad itself, right?
Yeah.
Creative is just
Yeah.
one of the solutions, one of the exit strategies.
Yeah. I had somebody that they did their first deal with me, first couple of deals, and they learned a lot working with us. And they said, hey, you guys are pretty expensive. I'm going to try somewhere else. And I said, okay, that's cool. I wish you the best. And then their deal fell apart, and I'm like, I shouldn't have told you you could do that, because we would have checked that at the beginning. And they ended up losing earnest money because they didn't realize how much property taxes were going to change because of the type of the loan it was and the location. And I'm like, I wouldn't have even taken the deal on until you told me you understood that that's how the underwriting was going to go.
Right.
And they said, I'm sorry. And I said, I'm sorry to them. And they said, no, I'm sorry to you. And I'm like, no, maybe we're both sorry, because I should not have let you go elsewhere with my blessing. And she said, I really should have stuck with you. I didn't know what other people don't do by comparison to what I learned what you guys do.
And can you get more specific in that? I mean, without disclosing names, like this was a tax situation?
Yeah, property tax.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with Texas, they have no income tax, which sounds great. How do they make up for it?
Property taxes.
Property taxes. Guess what else they love? Veterans. So how much do veterans pay on property tax?
Zero.
Zero. So if you have this is something I feel like it should be common knowledge to any
Right.
transaction coordinator. But if you have a VA loan, there's a pretty stinking good chance that there's a veteran involved in this transaction. And if it's in the state of Texas, there's probably zero property taxes being paid. So you're going to go from taking a mortgage statement and you're like, your underwriting says, oh, my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is $1,700 a month. Thumbs up, I can cash flow that all day. Meanwhile, the tax bill is going to be $2,000 a month once you actually take ownership of the property as a non-veteran owner. Well, that blows up your entire deal. And that's, like, that's obvious question for me and my team, and they've been trained. And if we missed it and a deal fell apart, hey, have your money back. I should have caught that in the beginning. But this person put in their EMD, and we've asked people, I feel like I don't like promoting. I'm not a salesperson, but I'm trying to serve people and do the most good. And that's why I'm doing what I do. We actually opened our virtual office for walk-ins. You can go to creativetc.io, click a button to join my Zoom, and see if somebody's available to chat. We've got people on call during the day, because if you have an assignment contract, what? Time kills all deals, right? Ask a question real quick. Hey, bring the contract. Let's look at it before you sign and send EMD. That's what I want to do, and to make sure that you're doing a good deal. So that was the
You should get real
specifics of that one
comfortable with
transaction.
selling. I'll just tell you, you should get comfortable with selling, because as a business owner,
I
that's
know.
your main thing, right?
I,
Like you have to sell, man.
I'm
Um,
passionate, that's for sure, but I don't like selling people. And if I had both of those things, man, I'd probably be way richer.
but I like how you framed it though. It's like you want to provide value. Like you're doing people a disservice by not sharing that, right? So
Mhm.
you definitely it's not selling. It's like it's your duty to share that.
And that's what I'm overcoming. So like personal transformation and growing up as a business owner, when I see people go elsewhere and then come back crying with their hat in their hands, it's my fault, because I didn't do a better job of telling them I'm the best option for you, and I believe it 100%.
Yeah.
And that's my
So,
failure, and that's why I apologize to the person, because I failed as a business owner to assert that, you know what, this is the best way forward, and I know it.
yeah. So when I was first introducing you, we had, Creative TC, which you're operating, and then Creative Underwriter. Is Creative Underwriter this new company or rebrand?
No. So Creative Underwriter, I wrote a spreadsheet inside the Sub2 mentorship a long time ago when I was working on somebody's JV team, or as a JV partner into somebody's wholesale team. And I'm like, I don't understand how you guys are underwriting. And so I built a spreadsheet, gave it away for free to the sub 2 community, and realized I should sell it. Right now, for lack of a CRM guy and some other things, that thing's on hold. But I do have the spreadsheet. I have a bunch of video training on standby that I need to produce. But that was Creative Underwriter, and it's taken backseat because Creative TC is fantastic. Creative Underwriter was a good idea, but I need to put more time into it, and I haven't done that. And then the latest is actually DOS Guard, which it's November is my launch month. I'm pushing DOS Guard real big right now.
So what's DOS Guard? And
Due
what
on
the heck does
sale.
that name mean?
DOS stands for due on sale, not the disk operating system, not just denial of service attack in cybersecurity. I come from cybersecurity. So the due on sale clause is scary. We talked about it already. It's scary, but I have fixed it multiple times. And I did not feel it was appropriate for me to launch a company that sells a guarantee against that until I had fixed it multiple times and until I had trained my team to fix it without me being the magic sauce. And so I'm proud to say that my team has fixed a dozen due on sales, and I'm hands off. And
Mhm.
so now I'm comfortable selling a due on sale guarantee at closing for less than it would cost you to fix it after the fact.
Gotcha. So this is like insurance.
Yeah, I can't call it that because I don't want to be regulated, but it's a guarantee that it won't happen because of our people, processes, and paperwork. And
Mhm.
if it does happen, we'll fix it for you.
Got it. Okay. I like how you didn't even tiptoe that line. You're just like, I can't say it, right? Um,
No, but I know that
but
wholesalers
from
and other
somebody
people are going to
looking
call it
in,
that.
yeah, from somebody looking in from the outside, that feels like I've got some insurance that if this thing goes sideways, because it is scary for everybody,
Yeah.
um, that I'm going to be protected. And there's going to be some costs involved in handling that thing. They'd have to come back to you or,
Not anymore. Not if you pay up for, if you buy the
oh,
guarantee
right,
up
right.
front. Yeah.
If they didn't do it, there's going to be some costs, right?
Yeah.
So what's the logistics of DOS Guard?
So we're partnering with title companies so that we can sell it through a title company at close. I'm not selling direct. This is for right now. We're selling into closing deals, not already closed deals. That's like early 2025.
Mm-hmm.
But we're partnering up with title companies and closing attorneys so that they can offer it in their sub 2 closings. I believe, again, I'm passionate about a lot of things. I think this is the ethical path to go because agents have a fiduciary duty to their sellers. And if they're doing a sub 2 deal, it's not good to say yes willy nilly to such a thing. You need to be educated and understand it. And so we're here to provide the education and the backing and the safety of we've been there, we've done that, we've fixed it. And so from a safety and process standpoint, we've got your back. We're an established company. We're partnered up with title companies, and we're doing education seminars and things like that. And we're going to drive people towards, hey, just get the due on sale guarantee. It's the safe and ethical way to do these deals instead of lying to people about, oh, don't worry about that. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does and it happens to you, it's a big deal.
Sure. And it's a selling point too for the person who's trying to buy the house from the seller and the agent, because they're going to think, well, what about the due on sales clause? I don't want to do this because I'm scared. But if the person comes in and says, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get a DOS Guard policy or whatever
Yeah.
you, I don't know if it's a policy, but
Yeah, they
guarantee,
can just put it in the contract. Hey, you know what?
and that'll solve that
Gosh.
problem. It's no longer an objection."
Yeah. Yes. Wholesalers, listen to me right now. This is me selling you. You need to learn about DOS Guard and you need to put it in your contract. When the due on sale comes up, you shouldn't let the due on sale come up and assassinate your deal while it's in escrow. That's not the time to talk about due on sale. While you're putting it under contract is the time so that people understand the type of transaction they're getting into and the risks involved, and that you understand that risk and you've already handled it. You're just going to say, listen, I've got a company that guarantees against it. I'll put that in the contract. We have to get that at close of escrow, so it's never a problem. Done. Close more deals with that line.
Yeah. Yeah, I can say it's one of the biggest objections, especially from like an agent bringing up the
Yep.
objection, right? That's what they're going to bring up because that's what they've been being basically like scare tactics from their local title companies and their broker, and they're all saying, "Don't do this because of the due on sales clause." Due on sale clause. I just took some CE credits recently, and that was one of the major things that they talked about in the update course was the due on sale clause.
What state?
Colorado.
Okay, I almost guessed Colorado up front. Their continuing education for 2024 got pretty big on the due on sale, and like they're not outright saying that sub two is fraud, but they're pushing that it might be it's very easy to do. In fact, I believe that it's very easy to do one of these transactions in an unethical manner, even if you don't mean to. That's why I exist as a company in the first place as Creative TC and now also DOSGuard.
Right. So DOSGuard, again, logistically, if they wanted to do it, what do? Do they go to your website and then they have to enter some information and then you issue this guarantee and it's like it's paperwork and everybody signs it, or what does it look like?
Yeah, there's some documents included at closing. We're gonna make
Mhm.
sure. So I don't want to have to look at every deal before it comes in. This is me as a business owner, like scalability wise, because I'm going to become the bottleneck. So I'm going to train title partners. So if you need DOSGuard, you can go to our website and we are building a list of title companies that you can go to. I'm also working on a certification for TCs so that if they want to facilitate DOSGuard, they can do it effectively and be able to answer any questions about it. So we're going to sell through partners that way. And if you want it, come to dosguard.io. I have a theme, creativetc.io, dosguard.io.
Mhm.
But you come there and ask, and we'll have somebody reach out to you that's in your area or put you in contact with the title company where you can get it.
Is it not possible for them just to go to the website and just do it all online and get that and just take it to closing?
No, we want to work through because I don't. I'm trying to get rid of the willy-nilliness of a lot of the creative stuff where people are doing it without enough structure and education. And so I want to make sure it's done right. And that's why I'm insisting on using title partners to do it.
Got it.
And
So let's
I
say,
want to reinforce the value that experienced title partners bring to the table. I want to steer people to title companies that actually understand it, because even if you got my guarantee and you went to a different title company to do it, they might not have all the stuff right, and then we're trapped in this correction paperwork loop. And I don't want to play games with title companies that don't want to play ball.
so the reason why you needed the title company involved though is because it goes into the title insurance.
No, so title insurance is one thing, and then the due on sale guarantee is a separate thing. They'll both be on the settlement statement. We're at As of today, we're at $2,500 for DOSGuard at closing, and as we get more data, we're going to be changing it per state. It'll vary per state, but
Mhm.
it goes on the closing statement, and there you go.
So you really all you need the title company for then is just to put it on the settlement statement as a fee.
Well, they've got my checklist of documents. I'm going to give specific closing documents to them. I've got a power of attorney that's 100%, I believe, is better than anybody else's out there, and that it's
Mhm.
specific to these. And there's a couple of other closing documents that create the relationship that we need in order to be able to fix it for you. So I
Mhm.
need those done, and I need the documents done right, and I want all the recorded documents from the title company. So like in the real logistics of things, the title company has to close the transactions, make sure my checklist is done. But after everything is recorded, then they send me a copy of everything so that if there's a due on sale, I don't have to ask anybody for anything. I'm locked and loaded, ready to go because I've got everything in front of me. And so
Yeah.
that's why I need their participation, because I don't want to be somebody who's asking, please give me things. I'm going to say the only way this works is if you set it up right in the first place. Now they're eligible to buy the due on sale guarantee because I'm equipped to actually go handle it.
Mhm. And when you go and handle it, it isn't something that's straightforward. Like you're just doing one thing. Like it's problem solving. You're working with the bank to try to
It's
like
active.
get them to do it. So there's a back and forth there and some expertise that's required. So that gives you that power of attorney, gives you the ability to do all those negotiations.
Yeah, so we'll work with people actively. I'm all about informed decisions. And so it depends on, did you wrap this to an end buyer? Okay, so let's get everybody at a round table and have a discussion about what's the plan moving forward, what are the tax implications, and what is the best path to avoid this problem in the future. Ultimately, I can play the little game of checkers where you got the last two pieces and you just forever and it's a draw. I can do that with a bank, right? We can deed the property back and then deed it back and back and back until they're tired of calling it due on sale repeatedly. That's not ideal though, because you have tax implications with transfers and expenses related to that, and we want to make sure that we set you up for success long term. So if you've already got it in a trust, great, but a trust does not make you due on sale proof. I mean, I could go on for a long time about all the technical things that have cascade effects down below, depending upon who's involved and what their exit strategy is with the property.
Right.
And so we want to
That's a
plan
whole,
actively with you to resolve it.
yeah. And it sounds like if anybody has questions, they can go to your office hours and ask questions.
Yeah, so Creative TC has open virtual office 9 to 5 Central. You can drop in anytime, and we've got somebody on call who will, unless we're, 4 people drop in, then you should be able to talk to somebody right away. And there's free chats and consults there. DOSGuard is still taking off as of the month of November, but we'll have contact forms on there with callback requests.
Very cool. So any other place where people can find you? Is you're doing a bunch of stuff on social media. I've seen your content out there. Where can people find you at?
So you can look up Caleb Christopher. I don't think there's any other Caleb Christophers on YouTube. That's a great place to find me. I'm the letter F because my legal name is Frederick. F Caleb Christopher on Instagram and YouTube are the 2 places I'm really pushing things.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time. I was thoroughly confused for a minute, and then you solved it for me, because we hear about a lot of this stuff, right? But there's like so many different angles and so many subtleties, and context is huge in all of this. Yeah. And so it can definitely be a challenge, which is why I would recommend that anybody who's doing a creative deal to talk to Caleb and his team to make sure you're, number one, structuring the deal properly from the beginning, getting all your paperwork in place, and when you submit the offer, it's done, which will help to prevent all of the problems down the road if you just do it right the first time. And then, talk to Caleb and his team about helping you to get this thing to closing. They're experts. They've done hundreds and hundreds of deals. They've seen it all across the country. It doesn't matter, right, which state they're operating in, you can still help them.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. But you guys check it out. Caleb, thanks again, man. Really appreciate you taking the time. And everybody, check out Caleb's website, and also keep an eye out for more episodes on the REI Hacker Podcast, where we've got amazing guests like Caleb who just know their stuff, have been there and done that. It can certainly help you get some business done. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.